Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here. Glad you could join me. Yep, busy time of year. We'll be talking about that, of course, and particularly about where you went for the opener. Just really curious about that. And you'll be kind of surprised at some of the answers. We'll also have my friend Randy Schultz, road warrior, author, blogger, podcaster, jet jockey. He'll talk all things traveling wing shooting, as well as all the things he's up to that you can take advantage of, from a book or two, a podcast, an Audible book, his blog, and his YouTube page, among other things. So I am so looking forward to talking to him about his most recent road trip and what we might learn about traveling with dogs and new and old friends and, hunting. So stick around. We're all made possible by Sage and Breaker Gun Care products, Pointer Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays, and Shooting School, Trulock Choke Tubes, MidwayUSA.com, Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, LandTrust.com, access to private ground for you, and HiViz Shooting Systems. See what you've been missing. Yeah, we're hunting. You'll get more of that soon. Don't worry. But in the meanwhile, I thought it would be fun to talk about what you've been doing, or are, so for some of you, your first hunt of the season is not opening weekend, and for some, opening weekend may not even be here yet. For example, if you live in Kansas, but a lot of you got out, and I was just curious. These are the kind of things that wake me up in the middle of the night. Where do you go for that first hunt of the season? Personally, I like to go somewhere that I know. I want to kick off the season with a positive note. I've actually even written about that. Go to findbirdhuntingspots.com. There's a piece called Make Opening Day Epic. That's one of the bits of advice there. But a lot of you look for adventure on that first trip. A lot of you have a tradition of one sort or another. So I asked a question on the first hunt of the season: where will you, or where have you been? Private ground, walk-in, preserve or lodge, or public ground? And some of the answers might be useful to you. Chris Lee Hamby hunts National Forest. Well, I bet so, yeah. Grouse. Forest grouse, I bet. And then walk-in access for pheasants. Jay Knotner, public land, found some native quail. Congratulations. In New Hampshire. I hope you took a picture. All right, Chris Stone, you're like me. I live right on the border. I have National Forest behind my house, and then I have BLM about a quarter to a half mile to the left there. He's doing the same thing for his hunt as well. Don Schrader is in the UP of Michigan on public ground, wild bird hunting with Picardy Spaniels. Yeah, beautiful dogs, pretty cool. Joseph Young, yeah, there is public ground in Southern California, and you found it. I love that. Travis Hampton, this is one that I don't mention much because I don't do it much, but private timber company that allows public access. George Cummins, I won't be seeing you there this year, but I know what public ground you're on, the Pierre National Grasslands, Fort Pierre. A wonderful place to open a season. Carmel Asir, private out my back door. I like that. Lucky for you. Darren Timberlake, usually public. Large group on opening day. Hard to get permission for a group that size is what Darren says, and I get it. Yeah. Private ground for some. James Fritz is on a preserve. I like that idea. You pretty much have it to yourself that way. State land. A lot of people forget those blue splotches on the map. To a great degree, blue is usually state-owned property, and more and more of that is being opened or has been opened to hunting. So all of those, Lance Larson, that's why you live there, isn't it? Here in Arizona, it's all public land hunting. There is a lot there, and I cannot wait to get there and try some of it myself very soon. Well, fascinating to know where you go. Maybe somebody there got an idea or two about where they might go. It's all right here, and More to come. We're going to learn a lot about access and strategy, how to take care of your dog, and how to make an awesome upland road trip out of any trip you go on. That's all coming up with Randy Schultz right after this. We're brought to you in part by TrulockChokes.com. That's TruLock, TrulockChokes.com. Scott Trulock reminds me that they have a lifetime warranty and a satisfaction guarantee. So try your new choke tubes. Within 60 days, if you're unhappy with them, just send them back. But for your lifetime, if something goes sideways with those choke tubes, send them back and they'll replace them. Learn more about their warranty, their satisfaction guarantee, and take a look at the 2,000 choices they have at TrulockChokes.com. And then fuel your dog with Pro Plan Sport dog food from Purina. It's designed for active, hard-working dogs, and don't forget, it's the one brand fueling most sporting dog champions. I mentioned before, Flick's got a little bit of a limp when he gets up off the hard floor, so we're keeping an eye on that. And one thing we're doing is watching his joints. Omega-3 fatty acid and glucosamine are contained in the Pro Plan Sport dog food that I feed Flick, and I hope they are going to be helping if that's what his problem is, a little bit of arthritis. He is 6, of course. If you want to learn more about the formulations they have that might work best for your dogs, go to ProPlansport.com. Well, it's been a long time since we've talked. I've followed his, I guess I'll call it growth as a communicator in our world, and also I'm jealous of all the places he gets to go. The guy's already got, I don't know how many miles on his truck this year. Welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast. Randy Schultz, I called you a road warrior in the introduction, and I think that's an apt description. Thanks for being with us. How are you?
I am doing great. I am great. I'm way better than I deserve. And as long as I'm still on the green side of the grass, things are going good, I guess. So, yep. And it's good to hear your voice, and it's good to be back and talk with you.
You know, it's funny. We lead parallel lives in so many ways, but we'll get into that later. You know, from books to podcasts to everything else we do. But we came to it a little later than a lot of other people as well.
Yeah.
But you, like me, I think, express the gratitude for coming to it at all. And I just want you to just share with everybody what it is that makes you so glad to be a bird hunter.
Oh, you know, there's one thing. They say that I took up fly fishing too, so now I'm totally worthless.
Yeah. Well, you went backwards. I did it the other way.
Yeah. So they say that, you know, about fly fishing, that trout don't live in ugly places, and that is true, 100% true. Not so true in bird hunting, in the bird hunting world. And in fact, I tell people, look, if you want to really have some fun in some types of birds, you got to look at the nastiest land you've ever seen.
Yep.
And you go out there and comb it with your dog. But I just, you know, the thought of turning into the wind, into a cold wind with a runny nose and cold fingers and a bird dog in front of me, and heading out not knowing where the birds are, but just trying to use my dog's nose and my wits to find them. That, I don't know, it just gets me excited. And sometimes I just sit down and think of all the times I've done it. And I'm just so thankful I get a chance to do that. You can do it without all your facilities, and people do it, and I'm just amazed at them. But generally, you need everything working to go out and be a successful bird hunter. And I'm just so thankful that I'm in a situation that I can do that. And I look for it, scout for it, and try to engage that and experience that situation as much as I can.
Well, you hit on several things there. The first is the other thing. Remember, don't forget, Trevor also wrote that one reason he likes fly fishing is because whiskey tastes better in a tin cup. And we'll talk about that subject a little bit more later as well. But this whole idea of, man, are we lucky? We've got functioning bodies. We got incredible dogs and access to all sorts of places. And I'm reminded of that every time I get a twinge in one of my baseball catcher knees.
Yeah. And, that's something too, your knees, my knees, my back, surgeries, and all that stuff. But thankfully it's all coming together and we keep going.
Well, you are a busy guy, considering you're, quote, retired, unquote, from a career in the Navy, a career in the airlines, and I think in real estate too, now that I recall. But you're so busy these days. On top of all your hunting, you got a blog, birdhuntersthoughts.com. You got a YouTube channel. You've got 2 books out and a podcast as well. And like I said, I'm attracted to the name of that podcast more than anything else. How'd you settle on that?
Well, you're talking about Whiskey on the Tailgate?
Yes.
Yes. That's a change from the original's title, but I came about that because, and I wrote a story about it in my second book called Whiskey. I realized that almost at the end of every hunting session, whoever I'm with and I will sit down on the tailgate. We'll kind of just go over everything that happened. We'll have some laughs and some discussion, and invariably it involves a fine amber liquid and whatever cups and glasses we can we can scrounge up, and maybe a McDonald's cup or just about anything we can come up with. But it really does taste better sitting on the tailgate. So I was talking to a friend of mine he lives in Wisconsin, and he said, Randy, he said that would be a great name for a podcast.
Yeah.
So I can't name the name of my podcast now. And he says, why not? I said, I didn't have a good reason, but this really, if you got just a second, let me tell you a little bit about this story. We were in Wisconsin. We had just finished up a cast and bagged some birds. And my friend and I were sitting on the tailgate, and we were sharing a little whiskey, and a truck drove up with 4 bird hunters hanging out the windows with their guns.
Oh, God.
And, it's Wisconsin. But so they pulled up, and they stopped in front of us and said, hey, you guys want a beer? They said to us. And I said no, but we've got some whiskey. And suddenly the truck shut down. The doors opened up. 4 guys climbed out with 4 containers of everything, and we're sharing our whiskey. And that happened. Let me see. After them, a husband and wife came by on a mule, and they stopped. And then a logger came by in a big old pickup truck, and he stopped. And so within 30 minutes, we had 7 or 8 of us there standing around the back of my tailgate talking about grouse hunting.
And an empty bottle, I bet.
Oh my gosh, it was just. Josh, we emptied Josh's bottle, and I found another one in the back of my truck, and we emptied that one. And the funny thing was, almost the funniest part about the whole story was that I looked at the last bottle, and I said, "Oh my gosh, a dead soldier here! It's an empty bottle." And I set it down, and I went around. I ran out into the woods for a second to visit nature, and I came back, and it was just Josh and me again. They were all gone. Look, we're standing there, and it's about 40 degrees now, and it's dark, and we're all alone in the forest. It was just a funny story. And Josh, he said, "How can you remember all that?" And I said, I've just got the capability to remember. I can remember dogs' names and dates and times and places. I can't remember why I went into the kitchen, but I can remember all that other stuff. And so anyway, I wrote a story about it, and that's how the name came to be. And it's just, you're right. I think it's real appropriate.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's a tradition with us too. I have a new configuration on the back of my truck that means no tailgate. But we can still sit on the top of the bed. And so that works out just fine. And I've always got a bottle there, and it's a bottle that most everybody likes. What's your favorite whiskey, Randy?
Well, the benchmark is Basil Hayden. Really like that. But I've got about 4 or 5 guys I bird hunt with around the country, and we're all sort of bourbon, specialists, whatever. We just kind of our choice. And lately, rye has been creeping into the brands. Basil is sort of the benchmark for me. I mean, it's a really, really good bourbon.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They will come up with some real small batch bourbons from around the country, and I got to tell you, about half of them are better. And it's like wines with my wife. I don't know what's good. I just know what I like, and I like a smooth start, a smooth finish, and just real nice and easy in the middle. So.
Well, there you go. And from a guy who knows what he's talking about, at least when it comes to drinking it on the tailgate. That's Randy Schultz. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. Yeah, let's talk a little hunting before we get too deep into the whiskey thing, or we'll never climb out of that rabbit hole.
Right. That's right.
You're doing so much, like I said, in the media world, but you are also living the dream, as somebody recently described a buddy of mine. He's living his best life ever. Where you been lately, and how's it gone?
Typically I would always start in Montana, and I like a fool, I would always be in Montana the 1st of September.
Yeah.
Well, it only took me 10 years before I realized it's hot in Montana in the 1st of September. So,
I do know that personally.
Last year I felt like we were in a prison. It was over 100 degrees some days. It was just horrible.
Wow.
You may recall. I mean, it was just bad. Took my camper, and a friend met me there, and he was in a tent, and he rapidly got out of that tent because it never cooled off.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Yeah.
We were both in the camper, and I told him, I said, I feel like I'm in a prison. We can only hunt, 2 hours in the morning, and then it never cools off. It was bad. So, I kind of decided that this year we'd go later, and I did. And I went a little bit later, about the 3rd week. Actually, I went the 2nd week, but I didn't go straight to Montana. I went to Wyoming, and I went up into the mountains of Wyoming, and I really kind of stayed up at about the 8,000 foot level and camped and hunted blue grouse.
Okay,
and,
yeah.
Had a blast. And of course, I got started doing this a couple of years ago. And so I kind of had a couple of honey holes I went to and found birds, and I had my little puppy with me, and she's new, and she did well. So I did that for a week, and then we had a little get together. Have you ever heard of that Facebook page, Bird Dogs and Fly Fishing?
Have I heard of it? Yes.
It's kind of the class of the field, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah.
So it's a closed group. We got about 10,000 people that hunt and fish. So I make it a point wherever I go to try to find somebody from that group and hunt with them. And so we met up with about 8 people. We got an Airbnb at this little town, and we hunted out of that town out there in Wyoming, and did real well. We just some places had rain, and some places did not. It wasn't really just a banner year, but we did find birds, and I think the best part about it was just having all these rabidly, just real bird hunters out there to hunt with every day. And we hunted with different people every day. It was just a great thing. I did that. Go ahead.
I've thought about, I've done similar things to that over the years, and it turns out that whiskey is not the only thing that attracts people like moths to a flame. A flame does. We'll find a campfire. We'll build a campfire in some of the places where there are other people, and they'll all bring something over, and we'll all have a good time. And then the next day we'll pair off and we'll go hunting for a while, and then come back and debrief. I think sometimes that's the high point of the day.
Yeah, it really is, and that's good and bad. Missed shots and buffoonery in the field always it makes a better story around the campfire, for sure.
Was that, I haven't done near as much hunting in Wyoming as I should. I go through it so many times, but all I do is drive. Were you hunting Huns or sage grouse or chukars?
Well, all the above.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Moved around habitats, and I bagged a couple of sage grouse, a couple of Huns, and then I got some blue grouse up in the mountains, and then later on, of course, when I got into Montana, I went ahead and put a couple of sharptail in the bag as well. I got all those different species, and and then later on, after I left the group there, we kind of disbanded. I went up to Montana, and now I'm up there the last week of September instead of the first, and it was still warmish, but it was definitely more workable.
Did you find that late in the sharptail season that they were bunched up and harder to get to?
It's funny. I talked to a friend of mine when I got up there that I knew was in the area, and he said that they were having trouble actually getting to the birds because they are bunched up.
Yeah.
I did not run into that. I got into the big groups that I got into were pointed, and they were within shootable range, all of them. So they didn't really weigh, but I did notice the groups were getting bigger. They were kind of getting in together. I ran into that getting bigger group phenomena early in my hunting career up in Montana, where you just couldn't get close to them because they'd have a couple sentinels out in the wheat field, and 100 yards they all get up and leave. But,
everybody wants to go there and shoot pheasants, Huns, and sharpies, and if you can shoot pheasants, it's too late for sharpies.
Because pheasant season wasn't even open yet. But I did. We got into some big groups and really had some really good shooting, and over points, and I was just thrilled with that. This seemed to be the year of the Hungarian partridge. Truly, everywhere I went, we were a lot of Huns.
No, I agree. It's been my experience for the last 3 or 4 years, and the other funny thing about Huns. In fact, I got to pitch this story to a magazine. I've been finding Hungarian partridge in all the wrong places. And in fact, this is no exception. You know where we found all the Huns this year in Montana? In what should have been sharptail ground.
Yes.
And pheasant ground. The habitats have changed so dramatically. And Al Gadori, who guides in Montana, I trust his opinion on almost anything. He said... his birds this year were in the wrong places as well. So it's been a strange year. I'm going to blame it on the rotation of the earth or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I just think the hats are so big that they're just moving out into areas where they normally aren't. Yeah. They're still on the scrabbly tops of those hills. And they're pretty reliable to find up there. Well, but you're finding them now down into the bottoms, down into the grassy bottoms too.
Yeah, it's true. You just can't. You just got to cover a lot of ground, is what I figured out this time around in Montana, at least. And you're headed for North Dakota. Is that what I recall?
South Dakota.
South Dakota. Yeah. Okay.
South Dakota. October is my most favorite month of the year. That's bad grammar, but it's true. And I have a dog that just tore a CCL and had surgery 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So he happens to be he was my 6-year-old, which of course is the powerhouse. And I've got a 10-year-old, a 13-and-a-half-year-old, which are two dogs that are competent. Of course, 13-and-a-half-year-old just limping around, but I got a 10-year-old. Then I got another one now. It's in a cast, basically. And I've got a 1.5-year-old wild hair on fire.
Wow.
Little puppy. So I'm getting, I had to take October off, which I really didn't want to do, but, I had to do that to take care of this dog. So I am heading out the end of October to South Dakota. And I have a game warden friend up there that I'll actually be staying with him. But he advised me to be there that first week of November, not the second week, he said, because that's when gun season opens up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I talked about gun season for deer.
Yep.
Yeah. But it makes a lot of sense because he sees it all. And he said, Randy, you really ought not to be here for gun season for deer wandering around out where you are with bird dogs with white tails and all this kind of stuff. He said, I'd really rather have you up here the first week. So anyway, that's where I'll be, up in South Dakota. And I'll be looking for and hunting for prairie chickens mainly. That's my bird of choice up there. He told me that they are having an excellent year for prairie chickens.
So I'm told, and this will be the first year in several in which I'm not going to South Dakota. I'm kind of regretting it, but let's talk prairie chickens because it's not really something a lot. I shoot chickens as an adjunct to sharptail hunting. I never go after them, but if you're going after them, you must know some things that we don't know. What kind of habitat are you looking for a prairie chicken?
It's almost identical to sharp-tailed grouse.
Yeah.
In fact, they're so intertwined. I do know that generally the around the pier area, when you've got a lot of grass, that's where I would go. Mm-hmm. And it's a hard bird to hunt because there are no real objectives. It's just you look out at a sea of grass that borders up against a wheat field, and they're going to probably be chickens there this year, and they'll be out in the middle of that grass. And if there's a hill, they'll be sort of on the side of that hill watching you come.
Yeah.
I love them. I've done pass shooting on them, where I've seen 100 of them come up over a hill, and they're headed right at me, and I just crouch down and jump up when they come over and try to bag one, and that's difficult, by the way.
Well, I've heard about that. I've actually mentioned it a couple times in an article or two. I've never done it. Did you do that on purpose, or was that by accident? Because some people, I'm told some people will crouch in a road ditch at the end of the day and wait for those birds to fly from wherever they are to their roosts.
Oh, sure. And they'll probably come by there every day.
Yeah.
And do it. And, I did the math on that, just figuring out a few variables. And, you gotta aim between 10 to 15 feet in front of those guys when they come over. That's hard to do for unless you're an expert pass shooter and have done it a lot. To aim 15 feet in front of a bird, that's tough. So now I know why I'm always shooting behind them, no matter what I do.
Well, here's my one piece of shooting advice given to me every time I'm at the range: miss in front of the bird. It still doesn't work for me, but I get the idea. Yeah.
I hear you. But I do my dogs. These birds are fun to hunt because they will hold tight.
Yeah. And
the cubbies are generally big. I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled to hear that it's going to be a good year for them because they're just beautiful birds. And if you like hunting sharptail, then really when you get into prairie chickens, they're going to act the same. They're not going to sound the same. They don't laugh at you when they fly away. They're very silent, but they will fly the same distance. They're in the same habitat. I do know that the National Forest or Grasslands biologist up there in South Dakota, he manages a lot of land, and I think I'm trying to remember exactly what he told me, if he manages it for chickens or if he just manages it for upland birds. I'm not real sure now what he told me, but so I don't want to say. But I do know that there is a preponderance of prairie chickens versus sharptails up there. So.
Yeah, I'll never forget the first time I hunted on horseback up there. Which everybody should do, by the way.
Yeah.
But I was having a worse than usual shooting day. We'd get lots of great dog work, and then I'd pile off the horse, and the wrangler would hold the horse, and we'd go up and try and push the bird up, and I was missing on everything. Finally, the wrangler got distracted by something on one find, and we walked up to where the dogs were pointing. I looked back, and here comes the horse. And he comes up to the right of me while the dogs are all to the left of me. That horse is smarter than the dog. He pushed the bird off the ground. So we had a Flushing, Tennessee Walker with us. I had no idea.
That horse has probably seen so many. That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, and those lands, that habitat is so perfect for a horse. Unbelievable, dude.
It is.
That would really be the way to hunt them.
Well, I'll tell you, I came back from that trip and wrote a story for, I think, Gun Dog magazine, maybe for Pointing Dog Journal, but everybody should get on a horse for at least one hunt. It changes your perspective, and I don't mean just literally. So add that to your bucket list if you don't have it on there already.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fun. Yep.
Hey, everybody, you're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. That's Randy Schultz, author, blogger, podcaster, Audible book. Did you read your own Audible book?
I did.
Yeah. Okay. So we got all of that and a lot more to talk about. We'll get into kind of the nitty-gritty of hunting and road trips and a few other things, and probably find a rabbit hole or two to go down again right after this. Randy, you take a minute to rest. I'll pay a couple bills here, and we'll go from there. Starting with Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. Yeah, since that big, bad South Dakota trip, I've gotten much better at my shooting, thanks in large part to the hunting shooting instructors at Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. If you're in Western Oregon at all, make an effort to take a lesson or two while you're there. Have some fun with all the clay target games, including Helis. Look it up. It is fun. And then take a look at their incredible inventory of shotguns, including a whole bunch of sub-gauges. They always have in stock 20s, 28s, and 410s, and special deals on a lot of special orders. So check them out at midvalleyclays.com. And my friend Fred Bohm at sageandbreaker.com reminds me that they're just about ready to flip the open sign on their new office and retail shop in Sonoyta, Arizona. If you're heading for the Mearns Mecca this season, stop by and say hello to Fred and the crew. Sign up for all of their email notifications. You'll find out when the grand opening is. You'll find out about the new products that are in the pipeline right now and the very rare sales that take place. It's all at sageandbreaker.com. And Randy, are you still there? Randy Schultz.
I am. Mm-hmm.
You have learned a lot, and you have taught me many things about road trips, and especially with a gaggle of dogs like you bring along. You must learn a lot about how to take care of them when you're not at home. I know. Right. I'm looking. I can even see my truck from right here. It is loaded to the gills, and it will be until the season's over. What's in your kit for dog care on road trips?
I think first of all was I just made a change recently. It's crazy that I didn't do this earlier. I moved my dog inside my truck. I took out the entire back seat of my truck, and I've got kennels stacked, 4 of them, or 3 of them actually, and 1 in the way and back still. But I stacked 3 kennels back in there, and that took care of the heating and cooling issues that I had transporting my dogs.
Yeah,
now, transporting one dog or it's usually not a problem, or 2 dogs, but I had 5 of them I was transporting. I'm down to 4 now. But just this summer, I said, now wait a minute. I don't carry anything in the back seat. The back seat's worthless to me. I carry dog food, maybe some clothes, maybe a cooler. And so I've got this entire back of the truck underneath the camper shell that I've got the huge back of the truck to carry all that stuff. I said, I'm going to take this seat out. So I just 4 bolts, it's gone. I stacked crates in there. And this last trip, the one to Wyoming and Montana, was the first time it was like a proof of concept trip for me. And I really, really recommend it. A lot of us drive these big 4-door trucks, and I've heard, we've got a lot of room back there. And I know some trucks actually come with seats that fold flat back there.
Yeah.
On the bottom.
Yeah.
And they fold away. Mine did not do that. So I know that Dodge has got some that do that, and it's just totally flat back there. So you wouldn't even have to take the seat out. You just stack your crates on the top back there. And a buddy of mine who's got a Toyota Tacoma did that, and he's got his 2 dogs in the back seat now, and it just solves so many problems. And I can't say enough about that, because of the heating and cooling issue for your dogs. In addition, riding in the back of a truck, a pickup truck, I don't care how much padding you put back there, it's tough on a dog. It will just vibrate them.
Oh, yeah.
Hitting the bumps, especially in Mern's country and doing the rock crawl up some of those roads.
Yeah.
I'm going to hunt for Mern's quail, and I look back there, my dogs are all wide-eyed. They're about shot for the day, just getting to where we want to hunt. But,
it's a running joke, but it's true. They're probably standing up the whole time trying to maintain their balance, and that's got to wear out a dog.
Yeah, I think so. So I noticed that, in fact, I've had dogs, my older dog, my Ruby, she would refuse to get into the back, where I had her crate, in the back of the pickup truck. And so I actually had to move her up to the back seat with her cage.
Yeah.
And that's kind of this process of thinking, wait a minute, why can't I move them all up here? So anyway, so I got that going, and anchoring them down and doing some finer, just little modifications on that.
Yeah.
Will be the next trip, but that's for sure. I wish I'd done that 20 years ago. It's just crazy that I didn't think of that.
I've used that on occasion, and I think I'm going to become a believer after your testimonial. How about nutrition and I'll loosely call it feeding, but all the stuff that you put in a dog at the beginning or the end or during a hunt.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't. If you've got a good feed, and there's a lot of them out there, I've got my favorites, and if you've got a good feed, a good solid feed that your dogs will stay on the whole time you're on a trip, then that's the base. And you take that base, and I put additives in there for the dogs when we're hunting, and additives for their joints, and vitamins and minerals and all that kind of stuff. And I'll add fat into their feed and all that stuff. And I feed them once a day, and I feed them after they're finished hunting. Mm-hmm. Usually I'll feed them all together, but if a dog is really, really put out and he's really tired, I mean, he's just really done it for me that day, I'll wait about an hour and feed him about an hour after I put him up, regardless of where we are. And I'll sit and because that nutritionally, the best way for performance dogs is, one, they want to perform on a totally empty stomach.
Right.
People don't understand that, I don't think, but they need to perform on a totally empty stomach. And that means empty from when you turn them out in the morning until they're finished hunting. And people say, well, where are they going to get their energy? Well, they've got their energy stored in their body from when you fed them before. But they don't want to have anything in their stomach. And then you're supposed to really feed them within 30 minutes to an hour after the end of exercise. So I try to do that too, but a lot of times I miss that, and all the dogs get fed, after the last dog goes up in the crate.
Sure.
A lot of times I'll feed in the field. I've just taken up to doing that. I'll find a spot by myself, and I'll put the 5 or 4 bowls on the ground, and we'll sit there and we'll feed, and I'll sit on the tailgate and fill out my logbook while they're eating. And the other thing is they need to be hydrated. A dog that's not hydrated will start making mental mistakes.
Yeah.
So I usually don't do this in the summertime, but when I'm bird hunting, I fill their food bowl up with water.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that dry kibble should be fed dry, and then 30 minutes later give them water. And I have no doubt that's the absolute best way to do it. But hunting dogs and the dogs that are canine athlete marathoners like we have, their biggest issue is going to be dehydration. They just cannot get enough water into their body. And a lot of times dogs that are stressed, they won't drink as much. And so then you've got yourself a worsening situation where a dog is a little bit dehydrated, and then their body's getting stressed because they're more dehydrated, and then they'll stop drinking. So the way I solve that is I fill up their food bowl with water. After everything I put in there, I fill it up with water, and if they want to eat, they're going to have to drink. And really force them hydrated. So I don't do this anytime except when I'm actually have them on the road.
How about during the day, during a hunt? Are you sweetening the water? Not literally, but are you doing anything with the water you provide your dogs?
I have some energy type canine additives that I can put in their water, and I do that. You know what I found though is that most dogs, all they want is clean water. That's what they want, and they really don't. They'll drink dirty water, but what they want is clean, cool water, and they really don't care about the additives. And if I put down a bowl with water with additive and just plain water, 9 out of 10 of them will go to drink the plain water. Isn't
that the truth? Yeah, I've never had much luck with all those tricks.
Yeah. So I buy bottled water by the case, and I keep it in the back of my truck, and I fill up as much as I can with bottled water into their water bowls and so on like that, into the water that I carry with me in my pack. And so I mean, it's crazy. They're drinking out of mud puddles, they're drinking out of stock tanks, they're drinking out of all this stuff, but I want to make sure they've got good clean water whenever they come to me to get it. Water's a big thing. Hydration is a big thing.
I'm also experimenting. For years I was a distributor for a product called pemmican bars. It was really not pemmican like the old days, but it was a high energy snack for a dog in a very low volume. Yeah. And I love that product. And unfortunately, it's not available anywhere in the U.S. anymore. But I've been experimenting with other things that are high fat, low volume, and I'm still on the path toward a final solution on that. But I've settled on egg yolks. They get messy when you put them in your pocket, especially if they break. But no, I put them into a little squeeze tube, and the dog gets a little bit of that throughout the day, and it works pretty well for a little bit more energy. If you only have one dog and you got to hunt him 3 days in a row, he's going to need all the help he can get, and you can't get enough calories into a dog like that.
Right. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to have a good quality feed too.
Yeah.
So they're not going to get stressed. I started out with a feed that was very common, and I've tried everything. Yeah. I have tried everything. Don't worry, I'm not going to name any names. I have tried every single thing on the market. I've ended up with a feed that is expensive as all get out, but my dogs will not back off that feed. I can feed it dry. I can feed it wet. They attack it. I mean, this last trip, I was on the road for 28 days.
Wow.
And they were hitting that feed at the end just like they were the first day out. So that's what you have to find. That's what you have. Don't go by what anybody says or anybody tells you is the best feed. Go out and experiment around until you can find one that your dog will do that, and then start, adding water to it and adding eggs to it. I know I got to tell you a little bit of a funny story here. It's kind of tragic actually, but I was toying with the idea of feeding organ meat to my dogs.
Yeah.
And so last year, I was up in Wisconsin hunting rough grouse, and I met my friend up there, and I said, well, hey, I've got these chicken livers I bought. I brought them up with me, so I'm going to give them to the dogs, and you can buy them at the grocery store. So I gave all the dogs their chicken livers, and the next day I got up.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
It was bad. It was coming out of the front end and the back end, and every dog and every crate was totally covered. And so apparently those chicken livers had gone bad. And I called a vet friend of mine, Bird Dog Doc, I call him, but from out in Castle Rock, Colorado, and told him what happened. He started laughing. He says, all right, don't feed them. Just, hunt them. Don't feed them anything for a day, 24 hours, and then feed them tomorrow, and they'll be fine. He assured me they're going to be fine, not going to hurt them. And sure enough, it cleaned it up, but it cleared it up right away. But, here I am trying to get all fancy with all this stuff that I was experimenting on my dogs, and it just turned south on me, and they let me know.
Well, I can't argue that at all. I have to sometimes induce Flick to eat at the end of a long hunt, but I've got all sorts of tricks. The one I like most is the easiest one, those little canned dog food, wet dog food. You put them underneath the kibble, and all of a sudden he's working towards the wet stuff through the dry stuff, and that pays off pretty well.
Absolutely.
So, everybody's got back in the day, the trialers would do that with cat food. And if you've ever fed cats wet food, you know why the dogs like it. It stinks to high heaven.
It's nasty.
Yeah, but it works. How about yourself on the road? I'm the same as you. Aches and pains, diet, exercise, logistics, all those things. Of all of the stuff that you need to do or accomplish when you're on a long road trip, what is the most important thing you might recommend to the rest of us?
I got to tell you, I have just sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep is so important, and after a good night's sleep, I feel like I can conquer the world. But I eat breakfast. I didn't used to be a breakfast eater, but I always eat a small breakfast now. And I just, nutritionally, and I always take something in my backpack for lunch.
Yeah.
And it may just be some sausage and cheese, maybe just an apple and something like that. But it forces me to take a break and to sit down with the dogs and just take a minute and eat some lunch nutritionally. But, as I get older, I realize that going slower has a lot of benefits. It really does. And I tell myself, and I hunt with some young guys now, and I look at them go tearing off into the woods, and I say, that was me not too long ago. And I had an older guy I hunted with, used to get all upset with me because I'd just be tearing ahead of him, And now I actually called him up and told him, I said, you know what? I know what you mean. And I think by slowing down, not only do I preserve my physical body, but I also find more birds. And I give the dogs a chance to work the ground longer. And I think I'm more successful now than I used to be by flying over country.
No doubt about it. No, I agree 100%. Stopping and smelling the wild roses is the ticket to more birds, no doubt. I'm a big believer. I have a friend who has two other tricks that he uses, and then I've begun to adopt periodically. First, he waters his dog out of a bowl, a little collapsible silicone bowl, which he has to stop, take off his vest, fish it out of the vest, pour some water in, and give it to his dog. So that is a 4 or 5 minute break. And he does that periodically, and all of a sudden you're enjoying the view. Your dog is getting rest. You're getting rest. The other thing he does is at noon when he's eating his light lunch, he takes his boots off.
Yeah.
Oh, man, there's nothing nicer than that. Then the biggest worry is don't fall asleep. So looking for reasons to just pause really enriches the rest of the hunt, I think. And for some people, it's taking a picture or two. For other people, it's something else. But all those things.
Speaking of boots, do you wear your boots from when you get up until you go to bed?
No. In fact, I'm putting a new pair of moccasins in my trailer today. Because there's no better feeling than taking off those boots right after you put the tailgate down and pour the first glass.
Great, that's right, absolutely. And I had a friend of mine point that out to me. He said, "Randy, you do that." I said, "Do what?" He said, "You take your boots off, put your other shoes on." I said, "Absolutely, I do." And he said, "I've been noticing all you old guys do that." I said, maybe you're young enough you can learn something early. I said, that just is a wonderful feeling to get rid of those boots and put on some nice, well-worn shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now we're good. That's a rabbit hole we don't need to go down. That old guy rabbit hole. But here's a more practical question. You just mentioned your last trip was 28 days. Whew, man, I wish I could say that. But you shoot a bird on day 2, and you shoot a bird on day 28. I know you're enjoying most of them quite often in pretty nice, interesting recipes.
Right.
But
yeah.
Is that there's no other way to bring that many birds home? First off, there's possession limits. Second off, there's practicalities. But what about storing birds on a long hunt, whether it's 5 days or 28 days? What do you do?
Yeah, you have to be real careful with your cooler. I mean, you do. And so, initially when I get back to the truck, let's say I've got 3 prairie chickens in my bag. So I will not, especially if I'm going to be traveling from state to state. Here's where it gets complicated. Let's say instead of prairie chickens, I have sharp-tailed grouse. I have 3 sharp-tailed grouse. I shot them in Montana. I'll be traveling to visit a friend of mine in South Dakota, who happens to be a game warden, by the way. So anyway, I'm really, really, really becoming familiar with these. So of course, there's sharp-tailed grouse in South Dakota as well. And so I've got these 3 sharp-tails. So what I will do is I will open up the sharp tail and gut them.
Yeah.
I reach in, pry the breast up, reach in there with my hand, and pull all the innards out. And some people feed that stuff to your dogs. I've just not gotten to that state.
No, it's worse than bad livers.
So I will do that. I will gut them, and then I will take a baggie, and I will put them all 3 into a baggie, and then put that and squeeze all the air out of it, and then put that baggie into my cooler. And so they travel well that way. You've gotten rid of everything inside the bird that may contaminate the meat. And you've got them, that's pretty much a limit in some states. In other states, you can get 4, some states 5 maybe. But I can write on the outside of the baggie what I need to do to make it legal to cross state lines with those birds.
Yeah.
To put my name and the date and the location and my license number, and I may have to sign it. I'm not sure about all that yet, but that's what I do. And on the outside of the baggie, using a Sharpie, and then put it in the cooler. If I get stopped and get checked, which is happening more and more in a lot of states now, they can say, "You mind if we see your birds?" I say, "No, show them to them," and there they are. And I know I'm under the possession limit for Montana, and I shot those, and so then I will try to keep them until I eat them, wherever that might be. Uh, I don't bring a whole lot of birds home. I eat a lot of them on the road.
Yeah,
A lot of them. If there's more than just me hunting, then I make it a point at night to let's cook these birds up. And I mean, what more healthy dinner can you have than a game bird you just shot that day? And I've just got good recipes that I use, and a lot of them are just kind of made up, but they work. And I call them sharptail fritters is what I call them. Using the two breasts and cheese and jalapeno pepper wrapped in bacon. I mean, what could go wrong with that?
Yeah, I got a tip for you on that. Speaking of that sort of thing, there are several ways to improve any recipe, and one of them is more bacon.
Bacon, that's right.
I'll tell you, I am a believer now in quote hanging unquote game. Uh-huh. Nobody really hangs it, but I had a similar trip where I shot a bunch of Huns in Montana. Forgot about them in the cooler until I got to South Dakota. So they were 5 days in the cooler. Uh-huh. Then we ate them. That was the best wild bird dinner I ever had. Now, some people would think that's a little disgusting, but maybe 6 days it would have been. But the idea of letting birds age is something that also has a lot going for it, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's like being in the fridge, I mean,
yeah.
And I found out too, just this last year, I started using dry ice in the bottom of the cooler instead of using, frozen water. And that I like it. I like it a lot. I just wish it was more available. I'm not sure where to get it on the road. I get it here before I leave, and it'll keep everything in the cooler for about 3 days. If you use a Yeti and don't get into it too much, but I really like that too, using dry ice. But did you, when you had those Huns, did you gut them first, or did you?
Yes, I got that far. I do that almost right after the dogs are watered at the end of the day. And so the birds, like you, they don't have anything inside them, so you can rest them, age them, whatever you want to call it, and as long as nothing funny happens. Here's a tip on dry ice that I'm going to use for the first time. I think it makes a lot of sense, at least. Mm-hmm. Buy some dry ice, put your other ice on top of it. The dry ice keeps your other ice cold too.
Yep.
So interesting. I'll report on that from the field.
You'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah. Hey, tell me a little bit about your books. It's been a while since I've reread them, but what are you trying to convey to people in your books? By the way, the titles are Endless October and then Endless October 2, October Season 2. Yeah. What kind of stories have you got in there?
They're all but a few. All but a few are true.
Yeah.
They're not mostly true. They're true to a fault, actually. And I've got one in there that's purely fiction, and I preface it with saying this. At the end of it, I say this was purely fiction. And then I've got one in there that was written about a moose, but so it's nothing to do with birds at all. But it was me being attacked by a moose when I was growing up.
What size shot do you use on moose, by the way?
I don't know. I had a 22 in my hand at the time, so that's what but I was severely undergunned for that moose.
Oh yeah.
But so I really write them with most of them are appropriate to people who have been bird hunting a while, because they'll recognize what's happening. But in the back of my mind, I'm writing them for someone that's really trying to understand bird hunting. Mm-hmm. And so I write them from the point of, this is what's happened to me, and this is how I got myself into this situation, and this is how I got out of that situation, and there may be something you can learn from this. And every story in there is it's instructive to a degree, but you don't know you're learning anything, because I think the story can keep your interest as far as what's happening just on the base of it. You can stories about my dogs and what they find and where they go and what happens to them. We can all learn something. When you tell me stories about your dogs and where you hunted and what you've done, I will invariably pick up something that I didn't know. And that your book that you sent me, that was a couple of years ago.
At least.
Yeah, I read that book in like it was like a day, and it's What My Dogs Taught Me. Is that it? Correct?
That's close enough, by the way. And the new paperback edition is now called something else: Training and Hunting Bird Dogs. Gee,
wow,
that's the marketing department for you. But what am I going to say? You want to get it now, just look for my name in Amazon. It's the easiest way to do it.
What the Dogs Taught Me. That's it exactly. Yeah. Looking at it right here. I was looking over at my bookcase there, and and I enjoyed that so much, and I learned so much from what you were writing about. A lot of it I was going, I understand that. I've seen that. I understand that. But then some of it I said, I never thought of that before. That's awesome.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. That was the whole goal there, was to bring up things that nobody else had brought up before.
Right.
Maybe someday I'll become a storyteller like you. But of all the stories you're telling, what one has a little bit of that educational aspect while still entertaining us that you can share with us?
Chapter 7. My first, not that I have it right on the tip of my tongue, but chapter 7 of my book is the only story that I tell in either of them, or if there's a third one coming out, so that any of them, that is about the last hunt. And that was a tough one. That was a tough one for me to write, and it was even tougher for me to read. And I had to, when I did the audible portion, the audible book.
Oh, God.
I had to redo it about 5 times.
Sure, yeah.
I'd get there, and then I'd really get into the story again, and I'd relive it, and then my voice would break. It was just terrible. And so I tell people, I say, when I give them the book, I say, when you read chapter 7, kind of be off by yourself. I'm just giving you a fair warning.
Wow. Well, I might be afraid I asked this question now, because I don't want to stop the podcast because we're both too sad.
Oh gosh, it's just, and I actually read that on my YouTube page. I actually read that chapter 7 for a YouTube thing, and towards the end there's like break. And I come back, and I'm not ashamed of that at all, because it was just one of these, it's like your best dog ever. And, and it was me and Ace, and what we did our last hunt together, and up there in Montana. And the whole time I'm thinking, we'll be doing this next year. Little did I know it was the last hunt. And, it's just, and I worked through that. And I got to tell you, Scott, there's a lot of people, me included, that really don't want to read about that, because it's just too intense. So I guess maybe it's sort of a fair warning.
Well, there you go. And in this day and age, that's a good thing. Some people think, but thanks for sharing it with us. And yes, there are, in fact, one of the editors I work with in the writer's guidelines, it says in bold-faced capital letters, no dead dog stories.
Right.
And interestingly, there's another editor who can't get enough of that. So go figure. There's always something to learn from that. What did you take away from not just the writing of that, but of the experience itself?
It never gets easier.
Yeah.
And it's just it took me a while to learn that. It's just the memories of that dog, and now all the dogs. In fact, I wrote a story about it. About now when I travel around the country, I'll get out of the truck and I'll remember about a dog that's been dead for 10 years. I hunted this exact same spot, and what happened that day, and what we found or didn't find, or it's hard. Sometimes I just have to go to places I've never been before, because I've got memories of all these dogs and what we've done and where we've been. So, I've just learned to embrace it.
Yeah.
And just that is part of bird hunting. and it is a part that you can run away from, or it's a part that you can embrace. And I think the sport is richer when we sit down and we embrace our dogs' lives, and not only how they lived them, but how they ended them. And I think that's a real important thing. And I think that comes with, I was going to say age, but more I think maturity.
Yeah, there's a difference. Being
able to embrace that. And I don't counsel people, but when guys come to me and say, old Biscuit's on his last legs or something, I say, listen, this is how you do that. You don't take him to the vet. Don't ever do that. Don't go into the vet's office with your dog to be put down. I hate that term.
Yeah.
To be put down.
Yeah.
You sit out in the truck. You hold him in your arms and have the vet come to you. If your vet won't come to you, get another one.
Precisely. I can't argue that at all. It's absolutely true.
You don't need it.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I know that's a tough topic to talk about, and we've all been there, some more often than others, but it is a part of the whole thing. And we could be grateful also at the incredible experiences we shared with our dogs, and that might be a good way to look at it. It sounds like that's what the story could be about too.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about some of the brass tacks here. Let's before I cut you loose, give us a couple lessons you've learned about hunting with dogs that we may not have learned yet. Can you enlighten us onto some things that we could do better or avoid doing?
It's I don't know about avoiding things, but I do know that what I've learned from my dogs over the years is to give them a chance. Just stop, let them hunt. I think the biggest thing that I see younger hunters do is trying to over control their dogs. Mm-hmm. And I just tell them, dude, he's got the nose, let him use it. Let him use it. I just take much more time in the field to let my dogs, each one of them, to work an area thoroughly and then move on. And I I think maybe it's just a slow down. Maybe that's the overall benefit of being able to slow down with a bird dog and let him use his nose and work it out. Because many times I'll find birds now in places where I've walked past.
Yeah.
Or I know a dog didn't go up there, and instead of waiting for him to come back and sending him up there to see if there's anything up there, I just said, we'll just, no big deal. We'll just keep moving along, and then find out that there's a monster covey right up that little slough. So I think the best thing to do is just to slow down and let your dog work.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing, and as far as don'ts, I don't know. I had one guy tell me that a bird dog is nothing more than life support for a nose.
Yeah, so true.
It was so true. Life support, and so you've got to let that nose do its work. And that's the best advice I can give anybody that hunts with bird dogs. Let them do the work.
Amen to that. That's Randy Schultz. You can learn more about him at his blog, abirdhuntersthoughts.com. He's got a YouTube page. I think, Randy, check me on this, A Bird Hunter's Thoughts. Is that right? Yep. Mm-hmm. And then his books so far, Endless October and Endless October Season 2, with another one on the way. When can we expect to see that one, Randy?
Well, I'd like to have it out before Christmas, but I'm not so sure that's going to happen. But this one's going to be a hardback with color pictures in it, color photos. Woo-hoo. And so, yeah, I'm excited about it because, the photos lose a lot.
Yeah.
Color black and white. So that's what we're working on.
Right.
And it's going to be a compilation, I think, of the best of, plus with a lot of new stories in there as well. So
we'll watch for that, probably on Amazon, among other places.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
And then the podcast, Whiskey on the Tailgate. Yeah, I like that title, and it's a lifestyle too. And you might be searching for a McDonald's cup or something like that. I just get a long straw and drop it straight into the bottle.
Yeah. That's hardcore.
Not really. Kids, don't try that at home.
Oh boy.
I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. Going to say goodbye to you, Randy. Thank you so much. We got to do this around a campfire sometime soon. And in the meanwhile, let's talk about that project we talked about off mic, because that would be fun. So anyway, Randy Schultz, what a great experience talking with you again. I'm glad we got caught up. Thanks so much for being a part of the Upland Nation.
Thank you.
And don't you go away, because we have still got a little bit more coming here, including kind of a road trip suggestion in the same arena that I personally have experienced that might be worth a visit from you as well. But first, a word from landtrust.com. Just like it sounds, landtrust.com. I've been sampling some of their properties. They are basically, think of them as an Airbnb for hunters. You go on the website, you find a place that you like, you make arrangements with the landowner and the land trust people who are there to help you make them correctly, and then you just show up. You got the whole place to yourself. Your dog has untrod territory to work. It's privately owned, so it's well managed, and boy, I'll tell you, so far so good with me. Flick's having a great time on some landtrust.com properties, and so is my lovely wife, who's come along with us. You can camp on many of these properties right there next to the field you're going to hunt, and the fields are available in any number of states. Look at the map, learn more about how it works, sign up for the free account at landtrust.com. And once you're there, you want to shoot the best you can, so take a look at HiVizSites.com, HIVIZ sites.com. See what you've been missing. I know putting one of their light pipe sights on the muzzle of my barrel has helped me just subconsciously. But there are a lot of ways that it could help you as well, and they're easy to attach. Hey, a music major and I put mine on. Most of them mount with a magnet or just a simple screw attachment. Anybody can figure it out. Try it for a while. You'll see why it's original equipment on everything from Ruger and Smith & Wesson to Benelli, Browning, and Remington. For more information, just go to HiVizSites.com. Click on the Learn tab at the top. There's a couple dozen shotgunning tips there that might be of use to you. HiVizSites.com. Now, I'm not going to give you an exact starting point beyond the town itself, but if you're dabbling with the idea of becoming a chukar hunter, and you can get to the west, the Great Basin, of course, is the starting point for so many incredible chukar hunts. And the bonus on most of those is valley quail, depending on where you are. But that is my experience in a place called Winnemucca, Nevada. Yeah, remember the Johnny Cash song? Well, there's a lot to be said for that old railroad town that now is a mining mecca. A lot of gold mines out there. Of course, the home of the Nevada Chukar Foundation banquet every January, and just a great little town for a whole bunch of reasons. You've got a few kind of low-key casinos, some great Basque food, and then access to millions of acres of public land. The Bureau of Land Management handles all the administration on most of that stuff. If you look at a map there, and if it's a real paper map or even most of the online or digital maps, all that yellow paper is public land. Just find some stuff that looks like chukar country and go at it. You're looking for the very same things you are anywhere else for chukars. You got some topography, some alluvial slopes, lots of rim rock, cheatgrass, water of one sort or another. Find a spot, park at the bottom of the canyon, and walk uphill. Winnemucca, Nevada. Maybe I'll see you there this season. And the road trip this week was brought to you by Midway, USA.com. They carry just about everything for shooting and hunting and the outdoors. Yeah, I've gotten some great camping gear there in the last few weeks. Just trying to fill out all the unfilled niches in my truck and my travel trailer. They've probably got it. Check them out at midwayusa.com. If you need to fill your ammo supply, they've got all that non-toxic stuff if you need it for wherever you're going next. Bismuth, steel, it's all in stock, ready to go. And they do their best to get it out as quickly as possible. Sign up for emails or text messaging for notifications on all their upcoming new product announcements and sales. You'll get 10% off your next order. It's all at midwayusa.com. And pointershotguns.com is where you find your next shooting iron, whether it's for you, for a newbie, for one of your kids. They got a lot of youth models. They got a lot of small gauge guns, including a new 28 gauge case colored over and under. They're all there at pointershotguns.com. All of their shotguns carry a 7-year warranty, because there's nothing worse than watching that pheasant tower up in front of your pointed, steady dog and then hearing a click instead of a bang. Learn more at pointershotguns.com. And this is when I thank you for being the best listeners in the whole podcast world. Love talking with you. You know how to reach me. Any old way you reach me, I promise I'll respond. Thanks to all of our sponsors, from sageandbreaker.com to pointershotguns.com, Pro Plan Sport, Dog Food, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrulockChokes, MidwayUSA.com, and LandTrust.com. If you left a rating or a review, hope it was a nice one. Thank you in advance if you're thinking about doing that. And to all of you who have commented at our social platforms, very useful stuff. Somebody else besides me is going to benefit as well. Thank you for being a part of the Upland Nation. I'm Scott Linden. I'll see you in the field.